Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Olivia and I'm with Envoke, and we're going to talk a little bit about alumni relations today. We brought Mark Inglis in today. He's the development officer for alumni relations at Cape Breton University. But I wanted to kind of just set the stage first by saying alumni professionals are being asked to do more with less resources. And what does that mean? That means that sending generic email blasts are no longer going to cut it. So Mark is here to talk to you about how he's using data to reevaluate his strategy and change his tactics to drive higher open rates and deliverability. So I will pass it off to Mark to introduce himself, and then we'll dig into it.
Thank you so much, Olivia. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to know everyone's here today. And I'm excited to share a little bit of the insights. I've been in this role for just coming up on 5 years. Come with a background of public teaching for a number of years, and then I went into public relations communications. And alumni relations is very well aligned with PR and communications. So that's kind of why I ended up being the person on our team who does a lot of our outward communications using platforms, both as social media, email, all that sort of stuff. So it's been a really interesting time in alumni relations to understand how to best harness that data. We're a relatively small institution. We've got about 45,000 living alumni in our database. Of those, we have contactable fewer than 25,000 that we have emails for. But 25,000 people is a lot of people. And when you're emailing them and connecting with them, you want to do it purposefully. You want to do it you want to segment that population. You want to make sure that you're contacting people about what they want to be contacted about, when they want to be contacted, and you're giving them really vital calls to action or just updating them on really important information. Our alumni base spans about 80 countries around the world, so there's cultural sensitivities, there's things you have to think about. And for me, it's, we've got tens of thousands of alumni around the world and a very small team. In fact, I'm the only one with alumni in my title on my team. The rest are development based on the fundraising side. So for us, it's, how do we best use these tools to propel forward the mission of what we're trying to do?
Awesome. And I did also want to say to everyone tuning in, there is a chatbot feature. So if you want to ask questions, feel free to do that. We'll get back to you hopefully by the end of the day, but we want to make it as interactive as we can. And we want you to have a good time here. We have a few kind of things that we want to share at the end of the presentation as well. So feel free to stay for that. But thanks. That was such a great introduction. And since we are talking about data, Mark, I think I'm just going to dive right in. So, what data were you previously sitting on that you might not have been using, and how did you make the decision to evaluate reviewing that data?
Yeah, absolutely. So just something interesting maybe to start even before that is in my prior roles, we were seeing, a good open rate of 25, 30%, maybe 35%. And that's great industry wide. Within post-secondary, open rates and emails can be a little higher if they're very specific. So that was kind of a goal of mine, was to increase our open rate and click-through rate. But some of the things that we were sitting on were graduation year, faculty program, geographic location. We know where our graduates are living. We know their event attendance history, or we've been tracking it. We haven't, not all of it has landed into our database just yet. Their donor status, whether or not they're giving, whether or not they're a prospect, their volunteer involvement within the university, or their volunteer involvement outside of the university, and more. So a lot of that stuff was incredibly valuable data, but if you're not using it, what good is it to you, right? If you're not leveraging that to communicate properly with your alumni, then you're sitting on a gold mine and just kind of ignoring it. So for us, we are now, with the use of a few different tools, we're now able to take some of that data and talk to people the way they want to be spoken to. They want to hear from us based on things that matter to them. So those are some of the big ones that we've looked at over the last couple of years.
Nice. And how exactly, like, how were you able to do that? What data were you looking at? How did that kind of inform your strategy? Maybe our audience would like to hear kind of some tangible examples of how you've used that.
Yeah, so we've had over the last couple of years a few reunions. So we haven't done the kinds of reunions that some bigger institutions do.
Mhm.
We're just kind of dipping our toes into them. So we've done a basketball reunion and a soccer reunion, both around um, having nationals, hosting nationals at our institution. And for us to be able to reach out very specifically to people who graduated from certain years and certain programs that played on those basketball teams to host that reunion has engaged them to a degree that they had never been before. They were coming out to the event saying, "I haven't been to a basketball game in decades. I haven't engaged with the university in years. I haven't seen this campus in 25 years. I didn't know all these new buildings were here." That stuff was really valuable, and now they've become champions to our cause, champions to the university. But having all that data, where they're living, what they're doing, what program they took, when they played basketball. That's just a really specific example of how we used it to engage some really valuable people, some of who've become donors, right? So that's been a really good example. Some of the other ones too is we've been looking at supporting recruitment efforts. So most post-secondary institutions right now across the country are dealing with the same issues that we are, which is enrollment is down. A lot of times because international student enrollment is down, the entire university's enrollment is down. So everyone has been kind of energized into this being a part of the recruitment solution. So we have done some great work in identifying some really good stories of alumni in very specific programs, which are the programs that we're trying to highlight. So if our recruitment team comes to us and says, we want to highlight the post baccalaureate program in business management, we're really seeing a dip in that. We can go to our database, reach out to 1,000 people in one fell swoop who have done that program, but talk to them by name, talk to them by their program year, talk, reach out to them and say, hey, we'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing, what your story is, that your successes since graduation, and that communication feels very authentic because it's about them. So that's been a really good example as well, and we've seen that the data has really strengthened our ability to communicate with people in the way that they want to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so personalized. Like, I was just thinking if my university did that with the marketer, I would sign up right away. It's extremely relevant and it's such a smart way to create content as well and engage
Yes,
your audience and align it with recruitment, like you said. So I
yeah,
love that. That's great. Um, awesome. So since you are an Invoke customer, we talked a little bit about some of the challenges that you were having with your email provider before. And I'm just wondering if you're open to sharing that, talking a little bit about the challenges you're facing prior and why you decided to make a switch and how that's impacted your comm strategy as well.
absolutely. So two big things. One was what I call like the menu theory. I don't really call it a theory, but when you go into a restaurant and the menu has 400 items to pick
Yeah.
from, you spend 45 minutes looking through everything and say, oh, that sounds good. Oh, I want to try that. And then whatever you settle on doesn't taste as good because you think about the other things. The provider before that we used just had too many bells and whistles and options that I did not need. As a relatively small shop, I need to effectively communicate with detailed segmentation so that people feel compelled to stay connected. It's as simple as that. And when there's all these things that aren't needed, it took away from my ability to use the tool properly. So that was a big one. I found it very overwhelming to use some of the other tools, specifically because it's a communications function. It's not necessarily a marketing function. I'm not marketing the services of the university. I'm communicating and I'm trying to make sure that people know what's happening on campus. If I was in marketing, maybe it would be different, but even that, I still think this tool is excellent for my needs. The other one is a very simple one. It's Canadian data. The data is situated here in Canada, which is incredibly important to our institution, and it's actually important to every institution in Canada. We actually have regulations that require us to keep all of our anything that we are using data wise needs to be stored in Canada. So any tool or platform I use, that's a requirement. And when I started to look into Canadian solutions to marketing and communications tools, Envoke was the only one that stood out. So those are the two big things. And then I've just become incredibly comfortable using it. I talk to colleagues, friends, my wife all the time about using it because I feel like a lot of people don't realize how simple it could be once they've kind of pulled back all those options.
I think you made a really interesting point too. A lot of the other email tools are built for marketing. So you're logging in, you're seeing like e-commerce features, shopping cart features, just things that you're never really going to be using. So yeah, I think that that's been a huge point for Invoke too, like that we sell specifically to communicators. So you
Absolutely.
log in, it's straightforward, it's easy. And even the fact, like you mentioned, that we're Canadian, but our pricing is in Canadian dollars. So you're
Yeah,
not subject to currency fluctuations if our dollar goes down or anything like that. So yeah, and your data is here, which is it's crazy to me because a lot of public institutions I feel like are using providers from like all over the world. So especially public sector.
yeah.
So it's nice to see people paying more attention to that now.
Yeah, of course. And for us, it was, like I said, um, not only a regulated thing within our institution, but also a point of pride. If you can say you're using Canadian um, programs and services, that's something, especially in today's day, you're proud to use and support Canadian.
Okay. Well, I would love to, I mean, for any of our audience here that's thinking about switching like vendors or a provider, I would love to pick your brain about how you walked through that process.
Yeah.
So,
So essentially, when we were looking into it, it really was a wide net cast. We looked over what different opportunities there were, what providers there were. But for us, our evaluation process included the Canadian data hosting. That was incredibly important. Integration with CRM. Now, Invoke integrates really well with a lot of CRMs. Ours, unfortunately, is a really it's a picky one, and not many things do integrate well with it, but most other did. And we thought to ourselves, if we moved away from our CRM at some point in time, it would be a really good connection. The segmentation capability. So one thing that I always tell people, and I feel like it's such a no-brainer, but a lot of people don't use it. In the pre-header text. So when I'm sending an email, in the pre-header text is that little bit that you see when you open your phone or you open your email, and this just a little bit that you can read before fully opening it up. We have worked to always include the person's name in that pre-header text, and we always see a great open rate because when somebody addresses you, um, there's just I don't know the psychology behind it, but if somebody says Mark, I'm going to pay more attention to it. So that segmentation capability and that ability to actually talk to people directly was huge. There's some really great automation tools. I haven't explored them a whole lot yet. It's something that I would like to more, but to know that they're there and they're not distracting me from what I'm doing, but they are available. That was something we looked at as well. And then also reporting clarity. So we were able to report really well to senior leadership. We're able to report just to colleagues on open rates, click-through rates, what devices people have opened up the communication on, what breakdown there is in some of their other statistics. That stuff is really big. So when I'm responsible for our digital alumni magazine that goes out 4 times annually, and it's sent through Invoke, and for me to be able to say to my manager, it was great. We had 43% open rate. We had over 740 people click. This story was most popular. More people clicked on this than this. It really helps define your strategy so you can understand what your customers, clients, for us, it's our alumni, are doing, and you can make data driven decisions going forward. So those are some of the things that kind of stuck out to me when I was exploring it, and they've all come true with that's a good way to
yeah.
say it. All of them have worked the way that I anticipated, and in fact quite a bit better.
Okay, so you started your process kind of out of a frustration with the previous tool, and we're thinking about, okay, what features would I want in the next tool that we're going to use? And
Yeah,
you,
well, to be honest, we started out of the data piece. The Canadian
okay,
data piece was the main starting point. That was the non-starter with the former tool.
yeah,
And then once we started looking, we said, okay, well, what do we want? And we listed
yeah,
out some of these things. What do we need? There were the nice to haves and the need to haves. The nice to haves were secondary, like quite far down.
mhm,
And this tool didn't have a lot of those just nice to haves that weren't going to support the data driven decisions we're making, they had the need to haves, and that's what I need. Right. For me, that was kind of where how we decided.
Oh,
And I could just talk a little quickly too about the switch
yeah.
process too.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it didn't take a ton of time to migrate the lists over. It was important that we had clean data. We've been very fortunate to have pretty clean data, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people have a fairly messy data set,
Yeah.
and it's not in the best place. But any data set's better than no data set at all. There were a lot of already created templates in the platform, and we invited our um, marketing communications team to log into the platform and create some really cool templates for us that we could use moving forward. So they made these really pretty templates that I could do really nice ones on my own. Our marketing communications team just did even nicer ones. And then we kind of just trained the staff. I was the main point person, but I've trained, I think now probably 5 or 6 people how to use the platform, so that if somebody needs to send something out. So, for example, we actually just announced 2 or 3 days ago our new chancellor of the university, and we're working with him to send a message out from him, but it'll come through us. But it'll come from his name, and it'll come from people can reply to his email address if that's what he chooses to, and that is huge. And for us to have all that, available has been really excellent.
Uh, Awesome. That's great information. I would love to ask if there's a campaign that you were really excited about that performed well that you would be willing to share with our audience.
Yeah, no, there's one that was really exciting for me, and this was early. This was when we first kind of jumped onto Invoke, and I've had many since, but this one I think kind of solidified wanting to use this product, and essentially we had a full strategy around it, and using the tools that we had at our disposal, it made it a whole lot easier. So, am I okay to share a screen real
Yeah,
quickly?
yeah, yeah, for
So I'm
sure.
just going to share a. I don't. Can you see it there? So
Yeah.
in 2022, we did a survey for our alumni, and we sent it out. Now, at that time, the number we had was only just north of 18,000 contactable alumni. It's jumped up to over 25,000 now. But we sent it out, and it had a good open rate, 36%, which is really good, to be honest, but it's not nearly one of our higher ones. We've had 42, 45, 50, 60% in some of them. But it was a really good click through rate. We had a very small revoked consent. So consent, sorry. For anyone who doesn't know what revoked consent is, that's unsubscribe. That's your biggest fear of any of these, is that people are going to unsubscribe. They're not interested in your information anymore. They don't want to hear from you. They're tired of you. So this was also, as you'll notice in the pre-header text, before I discovered the value of including somebody's name. So this was sent out to our base. We did say that it was a message from the president of the university, and we had subject line as win an Apple iPad, Watch, or AirPods. So we sent this out to, like I said, 18,000 people, and we had 1,800 people reply, which is over 10%. And in a survey, that's unheard of, to have 10% of respondents actually reply. And I think that what we did well, and now this was just a sent out to all alumni, it wasn't segmented. Had we segmented, had we had the time and opportunity to segment based on programs, years, we probably would have had even higher. But this one is a really exciting one because we got such valuable data. We had, for example, we saw that 99.1% of our nursing graduates were working within the field within the first 6 months. Like, that is the sort of thing that you share with your recruiters, you share with the governing bodies of post-secondary education. It was just really, really exciting. So, if you look at the message, I think you'll be able to see this as well. We had our graphics team design this nice. Everything. The other beautiful thing is everything is clickable. So if you click on this image, it brings you to the survey. If you click on this, it brings you to the survey. Now, the really neat part was, and this I actually forgot about before I told you this is one of the most exciting ones. Every single person had an individual link. So yeah, so every
Okay.
person had an individual link. So what we did was we uploaded the data set with their first name, their last name, their email address, and their link. So they didn't know that it was a particular link. So we could track back their information. So when Olivia clicks on this link right here, it goes directly to Olivia's specific survey.
Okay.
Mark clicks on it, Mark gets his particular survey. So that you can't do without having, these valuable fillable fields. So anyway, it was a nice experience to have a really cool um, high result email that went out. But that's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to see too. And I think it just reiterates how important the reporting is too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's awesome because you can test, you can revamp your strategy, you can like A/B test different subject lines, see what's working. It all just feeds into those strategies for improvement. So
One of the other
yeah,
things
that's
that we've been able to do well, and this was a good example, is you can segment out people who haven't opened up the email.
hmm
So
yeah,
what we did post this email a week later, we resent it only to the people who hadn't opened it, and we said, just a reminder, we sent this to you last week, and then we saw another big uptick in people opening it a second time, because sometimes we know emails get buried throughout the day, um, or you see it and you just delete it immediately because you think, oh, I don't care about that, but you see it a second time, you think, well, maybe I should open it up. So that's another huge tool that we've been able to use, and it only goes to those folks who haven't opened up the email. That's a huge opportunity.
yeah, that's great. Okay, I just wanted to wrap up by asking a few questions. So I was at a conference, alumni conference a couple weeks ago, and a question that kept coming up from organizations is how are you getting personal emails from students after they graduate? So obviously a lot of the time you have their student email, but when they leave, there's this there's this disconnect. You're like they're graduating, they're not checking their student email anymore. How do we keep them in our alumni database? So that was kind of a theme that kept coming up, and I would love to know either how Cape Breton University handles it and how you've also seen others in your community handling that
Yeah, that's a
situation.
great question. And if I could answer that with like a real good answer, I would probably be rich, because every institution around the world faces that exact same issue. Now, some of the larger institutions have built really complicated um, solicitation tools to be able to get that. Most places are small shops, they're small universities, small colleges, and they're working with a really small resource pool. But we've done some things, we have done leading into the convocation week, as students are coming to pick up their graduation gowns, and we'll do contesting. That's that last moment you get them before they become that alumni part, and that's done really well for us. But something else I saw at another university, my brother graduated from one in the fall, and they had a really interesting one during the convocation ceremony. After the student came off, they got their certificate on the stage from the president, shook their hand, went off behind stage, and I got to go kind of explore, and they had an opportunity to get a professional photo taken. They had an opportunity to get their alumni pin, to talk to their affinity insurance program. And to get that photo, that free photo that was taken, they just had to provide an updated personal email address. Stuff like that. It's being innovative, it's being nimble, it's being um, thinking always on how to get it before it's gone. But when it is gone, it's not gone forever. So being able to reach out to your alumni, sometimes it's as simple as doing now this one's expensive, but you can do it. You can do a solicitation by mailing address. You can send stuff out, through snail mail, and request people update their contact information. We've had an offer from our affinity insurance program to do a contest where they would, because they're looking for us to have updated contact information as well, because that's who they're
Yeah.
trying to sell their insurance to. But they've invited us to do contests where they would provide us $5,000 to have a large scale prize for people, and that gets executed out through social media. We're
Yep.
fortunate to have social media at our disposal today that we didn't have that 10, 15 years ago, not in the same context as we do today. But those are some of the big ones. But then also every event, every time you have alumni invited to something, have an iPad, have a
Yeah.
laptop, or go to a piece of paper and have a table where it has first name, last name, email address, year of graduation. Even just those 4 data points should be enough for you to be able to get them into your CRM. And once you have that, you just have to curate that relationship, make sure that they don't want to revoke consent to be contacted, because once they do, you can't reach back out to them. So
Mhm.
it's really important just to nurture that relationship. But those are some of the things that I've seen and some of the things that we've been able to do. But it's a persistent problem in post-secondary education.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's great advice. And I heard as well at the conference events were a great way to get people on site. And the convocation one's really smart. You get them before they're gone as well.
Yeah,
And I think LinkedIn too, like LinkedIn's interesting because
this is really
you can
interesting.
see who attended what institution. So it's a good way to like connect with people for outreach or just say, hey, I saw you went to X university. Are you
Yeah,
on our alumni list? Like feel free to register with your personal email so you're getting frequent updates. So
yeah.
I
Oh,
think word of mouth too. I'm seeing that a lot. Like I've attended some alumni events and I'll just share
just
them with friends.
just on the LinkedIn, another neat one, and I'll plug a different platform here that's not a competitor, but it's a really cool one. It's called Live
Mhm.
Alumni. And we've invested in Live Alumni. And what it does is it essentially scrapes LinkedIn for everyone who has in on their profile that they've gone to your institution. And
Okay.
then, so what we do is we upload our data, they scrape LinkedIn, and they provide us back a dashboard where we can go in and actually see, hey, this person, not only where they're working, what they're doing volunteer work, but up to date information, like where they're working today, not where they were working
Mm,
when they graduated 8 years ago or 10 years ago. That's been a really cool platform, Live Alumni. And if anyone's interested, feel free to reach out to me, and I can tell you a little bit more about that one. But that's an interesting one that helps us get
yeah.
updated data through LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today. Again, if anyone has questions, we just feel free to drop them in the chat and we will email them back to you. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. Just a reminder, I'm Olivia. I work in marketing for Envoke, and we are a communications platform, email communications platform. We're Castle compliant. We host your data in Canada, and we work with a lot of post-secondary institutions like Mark here. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue to do this type of thing and release content and videos. So if you want to stay up to date, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn or our YouTube channel. If you are at that point in time where you're looking for a new email provider, you can check out our website or feel free to start a free trial with Invoke. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Mark is also on LinkedIn if you want to connect with him. I'm sure he would
Find
be
me.
happy to chat with you. And thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks,
Bye.
Mark. Okay, bye.